Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Hurricane Watch Team is here for the 2025 North Atlantic hurricane season predictions. Sorry that this is going out so late. I've been looking for the past hour and a half looking for the clicker. I couldn't find it. at all. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna get into it. I'm just gonna do it, regardless of not having the clicker. Have to look for it tomorrow. But going into this, we're gonna talk a little bit about the INSO forecast and some other factors that could play into why what we think about the hurricane season. So here's our INSO forecast, as you can see through here, through April, March, and then June. Excuse me, April, May, and June. April, March, and June. Jesus Lord. April, May, and June. As we get closer towards the beginning of the hurricane season, towards the end of the hurricane season, there is a much higher chance of us having La Nina. So when you have La Nina, there are warmer than average temperatures in the North Atlantic and cooler than average temperatures in the East Pacific. There's more dry air in the East Pacific. There's more humid and less dry air in the North Atlantic. Less wind shear. Overall, the overall forecast for the INSO is that it's going to be more favorable for the North Atlantic once we get to the heart of the hurricane season. More higher chance of probability. You know, as you can see here, we're looking at between 30 to 40% probability for right now. This is going to change. This is May of 2025 right now. As we get, June, July, maybe, June and July, that may change. But for right now, it's 30-40% chance, with El Nino being much lower, more like a about 10-15% chance. But with the neutral climatology, looking more like a 40-50% chance. So there's a pretty decent There's a pretty decent chance that it's going to be average, and then about a 40, we'll say like 50% chance of being average, 40% chance of it being a little bit above average, and like a 10% chance of it being a little bit below average. So much greater chance of it being above average or neutral. So looking at the current sea surface temperature anomalies, remember, an anomaly is a departure from normal. So over the main development region there, between 10 and 20 degrees north, as you can see there off the coast of Africa, between coast of Africa and the Caribbean Sea is where the main development region is. It's a little bit cooler than average. However, the Gulf of Mexico and the Northwest Atlantic is warmer than average. As you can see, the East Pacific is a little bit cooler than average. So that's a little bit of that La Nina kicking in a little bit. So, current sea surface anomalies, again, for the North Atlantic. We just talked about this. I did want to talk a little bit about... Why is it's going the wrong direction? So, again, here's La Nina right here. This is what I wanted to mention. You can see these cooler anomalies right here near the equilateral Pacific Ocean. That is La Nina. That's La Nina starting to pop up. So sea surface temperatures anomaly forecast is going to be August through October. We're expecting to see warmer than usual temperatures across the entire North Atlantic basin. However, you can see there, near the equator in the Pacific, we are seeing temperatures cooler than average, which is that La Nina starting to pop up. So the forecasts are already showing there to be a La Nina, which is something we're going to need to closely monitor as we go into the hurricane season, which is again why a lot of predictions out there that you're going to see is going to be a little bit above average. So again, sea surface temperature anomalies for the North Atlantic, much above average for the entire North Atlantic, very well above average right here, and then much cooler than average right off of the New England coastline. So that's got to be something that we see right through here. These anomalies are right in this area right here. That usually is a sign that we could see much more active pattern. We have seen that horseshoe pattern before during active seasons. This is going to have to be something that we continue to monitor and we'll continue to give out updates. And then right there off the coast of England, a little bit colder, which is usual, and then a very hot spot there. And so that kind of shows that that's usually the pattern that we see when going into an active pattern. So overall, this sort of shows precipitation through August through October. Again, below average right through here because we're not going to be seeing a lot because of dry air. However, there could also be a monsoon season for Western Africa. So northern area, we may see average to maybe a little bit above average precipitation for that, which could mean we could have some long track storms going into the main development region. Average storm counts 1991 to 2020. So here's what we got. These are the average: 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. That's our average from 91 to 2020. So our 2024 Atlantic hurricane season forecast verification. Our first prediction was 17 to 22 named storms. This is our first prediction in March. 7 to 10 hurricanes and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. That went up in June as everything kind of got amplified, where we were expecting 20 to 25 storms, 9 to 13 hurricanes, 46 major hurricanes. In total, we got 18 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes in 2024. Much closer to our first prediction than versus our second prediction. Should have just stuck with the first prediction. Now, this was our forecast season verification for 2024. All the tracks that you see are the actual storms, and we were predicting higher risk for areas like Texas and the Gulf Coast, which we did see storms in Texas and along the Gulf Coast as well as Florida. We were also expecting the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic to be hit, but we really didn't see anything there. And then, of course, the Caribbean Ocean, we expected there to be some pretty strong storms and there to be a high risk of impacts, which we did certainly have a few storms go through the Caribbean Ocean. With everything that we just talked about, our following extensive research and analysis, these are our predictions. It's supposed to say 2025, as analyzed by the Hurricane Watch team. So, our predictions. So our predictions in storm activity, we have, again, a 40% chance of it being above average. Near average is 50%, again, with it being on average with the ENSO. That's giving us a more of a lean towards average. And then above average, we do see that La Nina as a pretty good chance, about 30 to 40% chance. And so we're saying about a 40% chance of it being above average. And then below average for, El Nino, we do see only a 10% chance. So we're not really giving it a really big chance. We don't think that's going to happen this year. If anything, it'll be average. So, for 2025, our North Atlantic hurricane season primary risks areas are going to be the Caribbean, the Lesser Antilles, right here along the Nicaragua, Honduras, and Yucatan Peninsula coastline, eastern Mexico, and the north central Gulf Coast, as well as the mid-Atlantic coast is an enhanced risk. But particularly western tip of Cuba, everything highlighted again in orange is that got that high risk of seeing tropical impacts. So I do want to make a note that even if a risk level is on a lower level, it doesn't really mean there's necessarily no chance of seeing a system there, but just lower when compared to the high risk areas. So across, in Texas and the Big Bend of Florida and the southeast, it does show again a bit of a slighter risk. But then you have, in the darker shade where it's only marginal, it doesn't mean that there's a low or no chance of storms. It just means that not as high as where we're seeing in the enhanced or even in the high risk. Definitely here in the Caribbean Ocean, the Lesser Antilles have the highest impacts and the highest chance of getting hit by storms this year, because of the high pressure that I talked about earlier that we're going to be seeing. We're going to get back to that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about that again. First, I want to go over the names. So, these are the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season naming list. I don't need to go over and repeat the names. They're right there on the screen. Pause the video and take a screenshot of this if you need to. But these are the names for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. So, in summary, I'm going to go over everything again. The 2025 Atlantic hurricane season is expected to be near average or just slightly above average. Again, the biggest impacts are going to be in the Caribbean and in the Gulf of Mexico. As well as, you need to get plans ready. Have at least a gallon of water per person in your household. Have all your food ready. No perishables. Don't want anything, wasted on you. No meat or anything like that. Don't have milk or anything like that that could get wasted. Plenty of water for everyone, as well as have all of your medications already refilled and prepared in case there is a storm. This year might be a little bit different.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
So, subscribe to our channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, comment your thoughts, observations, feedback below, and also follow us on Blue Sky. Join our Patreon for exclusive perks for a very low price of $1. So I do want to go back, because I do think that is the end of the slideshow. Because I did want to talk about one thing that I missed over here, and it was about that high pressure and the high pressure anomalies, which is very important. So as you can see on your screen, we do expect to see August to October high pressure anomalies there. The Azores high to be relatively high, about between 1020 and 1025 millibars. That remains high enough that it would push storms south of the Azores. It would stay relatively far south, like Harvey and Irma, Maria, as well as Ike of 08. I do want to mention that some of the storms may be farther south, which is why we are giving more of a chance of there be impacts to the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. So when you have that high pressure, it keeps things to the south and far to the west that could easily glide into Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, Mexico, and all those islands in the Caribbean Ocean, including Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Lesser Antilles, Bahamas. Not as much. I think it might be farther to the south and west towards Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, Belize, and the Yucatan Peninsula, and portions of eastern Mexico as well, than the far western Gulf of Mexico. But also, you may have some storms go riding up the coast there and into Texas, which is why we do have a slight risk of tropical impacts there for Texas. So we do think a majority of that pressure is going to be strong enough and will push a majority of the storms farther off to the south and to the west. That's why I wanted to mention that. All right. Back all the way. There we go. So that's why we were saying that our storms are going to go west, because of that Azores high, and why we do have a high risk of impacts for Nicaragua, Honduras, the Yucatan Peninsula, the western tip of Cuba, and the majority of the Lesser Antilles there, including Puerto Rico. But again, you still have that risk of an enhanced risk of tropical impacts there for the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Panhandle of Florida, as well as the mid-Atlantic coast, because you get some of those storms may ride the East Coast, and you may get some more. There's a more higher risk of impacts there for the mid-Atlantic states like the Carolinas, which is also why, again, there's an enhanced risk of tropical impacts in the risk areas there for the Bahamas as well. So again, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, go in the comments. Ask any comments you have. We will answer them as soon as we can. That has been it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Hurricane Watch Team, your source for cyclone information. As always, stay safe out there, and peace out.